Help me welcome Dr. Kimberly Hambrick.
Thank you, David. So, yes, I am the slightly younger sister. Before I get into it, I just he shouldn't have given me the microphone. So there's a few things that I would like to say before we get started. I got the floor. So first of all, I would like the first cohort of the Emerging Leader Inner Circle to stand, please.
Come on, stand up.
Stand, please. Yes. Today's been like Christmas to me because I have been working with this team for a year. I've never met him in person. I've been that little, as Kristen said, the little box on Zoom. I'm the one who didn't mute her phone. And so now every time David and I talk, he's like, "You're on Do Not Disturb, aren't you?" And I'm like, "Yes, I am. I'm in trouble all the time." What an absolute joy it's been. Such a joy to watch your transformation. I mean, we get into this business of coaching, and we hope, we pray that we see a difference. And what you all don't know is after these calls, David and I are talking, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, did you see that?" It's just, thank you. Thank you all for allowing me that opportunity. The speakers. Oh my gosh, David, I'm not worthy. I mean, I think Mom made you put me up here with you. These are great people. And a lot of these people I've never met in person before either. And there are some other people here I've never met. So again, this is Christmas morning. I am seeing people that I have connected with on LinkedIn. If you're not connected with these speakers, connect. They challenge me, they stretch me, they make me laugh. It's just amazing. And as I'm sitting here as, his kind of collaborative partner, as a presenter, I have learned so much today. So much. So I hope you have as well. And the last person, David, thank you. I mean, don't look at me. David, I met by accident, by chance. Someone was asking how I met him. So Doug, who was here, was holding an event where Mark Cole, who's the CEO of the John Maxwell team, was going to be. So I'm on a call Tuesday night, and I hear somebody say, "Hey, Mark, I'll see you in the Burb on Thursday." I'm from West by God, Virginia. I know where the Burb is. And so I Google, is Mark Cole in Pittsburgh? And it says he is. I try to get a ticket, they're out of tickets. I try to get a ticket, they're out of tickets. I contact Doug. I say, "I gotta get a ticket." And Doug opens it up, and I get the last ticket. I think it was $25. 4-hour drive up. I see David, as soon as I'm walking in, he's kind of passing, he's like, "Hello." We get into the event, and he's making fun of me because I get lost all the time. And right away, you like this guy. He's good people. And we kind of knew we wanted to work together. We started talking about where our interests were. We were both interested in growing emerging leaders. What you've created and what you've allowed me to walk alongside with, damn better than anything I was going to do. So thank you. Thank you. I am just, for those of you, for the leadership that gifted your staff into this program. Good job. Absolutely good job. So if you're sitting here and you're going to be a part of cohort 2, we can't wait. If you're thinking about it, join. Come on. It is an amazing growth. If I had this opportunity almost 30 years ago in leadership, boy, the pitfalls I would have avoided. So I just want you to join us. I want you to stay connected. It's been great. So how to get that out, but thank you, David. So let's get my mug off of there, for goodness sakes. I'm going to talk about communication and leadership. And one of the things, some of you kind of stole my thunder a little bit. So when you hear a quote that I'm going to say that, Jeff made, act like it's brand new, please. How many of you have ever had a communication issue at work? Raise your hand. Okay, so those of you who have your hand raised, how many of you knew it wasn't your fault? It was somebody else's fault. I agree. I'm going to be real here. I think I'm pretty clear. I think I'm pretty direct. I think people get what I'm saying. I had an experience one time with a colleague that worked for me, and I brought her into my office, and I said, I need you to be more assertive. I need you to take ownership. I trust you. Make these decisions. Gave her an example. I thought everything was great. I found out later she was in her office crying, thinking that I was going to fire her. I was like, what happened? So I really had to learn, and this is one of my favorite quotes by President Ford. It's not talent. You must be able to communicate and connect with others. And this is where somebody stole my thunder. Have you ever heard leadership is influence? Well, influence really depends on your ability to connect with other people. And the one thing that's going to stand between you is your ability to connect with your team. And to connect in a way that makes sense. And so I want to kind of talk about a few things with you before we get into a little bit of it. Purpose. When you're getting ready to start your communication, you really need to think about the purpose from the beginning. What are you trying to establish? And so think through that one a little bit. What's the long game? What's the long impact you want to do? You don't have to raise your hand if you don't want to, but how many times have you shot off an email without thinking? Only to find out that not only were you not professional, but you hit reply all. I'm not the only one who's done that, right? Yeah. Think about the perspective. Now, I love all my amazing speakers who brought all these props, and of course I have no props. And the one prop I wanted, apparently you can't find a blow-up beach ball in the winter. Go figure. I wanted to talk about perspective this way. Those of you in the emergency group, do you remember that picture that David put up to talk about perception? It was a vase of Oz. He wanted to know what we saw. Y'all were too afraid to admit what we saw. Those were not fishes. I was not going to do that. But if you want to talk about perspective, you have a beach ball, and you throw the beach ball out. So you're going to see certain colors, and I'm going to see certain colors. But we're seeing the whole. And that's what I really want you to kind of focus on when you're learning, when you're communicating with your team and others. We're coming at it from two different sides. So your ability to connect to your team is based on your communication style, how you communicate, what's your preferred style, and it's going to be based on their communication style. The same thing, how they communicate, their perceived style, and the information that they get. And this is where I got it wrong many, many times, and so I'm kind of hoping to help you here. One of the things I want to say, they're not equal. How I receive information, how I give information is going to be different than yours. 9 out of 10 times it's going to be different than yours. So what we're going to talk about are 4 primary communication styles. And we've heard a couple things. You know, Jeff has mentioned direct. I'm going to be organizing mine around DISC. I know that a lot of you do predictive index, but how many have heard of DISC? So DISC is just a way to talk about our behaviors and how we communicate. One is not better than the other. We're not labeling, so I'm going to use some examples. But I don't want you to think that DISC is the only way to go. This is really just a way to kind of open up what we're talking about here. So we have a DICS. Anybody know what D stands for? Louder? Dominant. Thank you. Thank you. So dominance. The I is influence. C. Where are my DISC people? What's C stand for? Huh? Compliant. S? Thank you. Okay. Oh, come on. Interactive. Don't leave me hanging. So one way to talk about it, D's and I's are more outgoing.
What was the S?
Huh? Oh,
Supportive.
steady. And I'm going to go over them. A D and an I are more outgoing. Should not be a surprise. I'm an I. I'm a very high I. I say hello to everybody. I talk to everybody. My children, who are 23 and 26, it is amazing that they still have eyes in their head. They rolled their eyes every single time we were everywhere. You don't need to talk to everybody, Mom. You're embarrassing us, Mom. Guess what? I'm the mom. C's and S's are more reserved. Guess what my boys are? They're more reserved. I literally have to beg them for conversation. And I think, as I said, they're older now, I think they humor me. They'll talk to me from time to time. But recently, I was in the car with one of them. We were in the car like 5 minutes. And my oldest son said, Mom, turn it down. I reached for the stereo. That's not on. And I look at him, and he said, you, turn you down. Wow. You know, so, and I'm using these examples. I want you to start thinking about yourself. I want you to start thinking about people in your life. Another way we look at these are, D's and C's are task first. One of the examples we always use if you're going on vacation, a D or a C is making that list. What needs to be done while I'm out of the office? What do I need to pack? Where are we gonna go? That type of stuff. I's and S's are relationships first. What are we gonna do? Who's gonna go with us? Those type of things. We all have elements of each of these. It's really just which ones bubble up. I'm a high I, but D's right behind me. I have sticky notes everywhere. I had a meltdown one time in my career working on a proposal because we ran out of sticky notes. And they made fun of me. And then the next day, I had more sticky notes than I knew what to do with. So it's good to have a meltdown from time to time. This is just kind of a high level. And what I want to talk about, again, think about yourself, think about people who are in your life. People who are D's seek results. They're active and a multitasker. I'm not going to pick on my fellow presenter, Jeff. I'm not going to pick on him. The high I in me, we wanted to have a picture by the tree of the speakers. Jeff, we're all arms locked, and he's like, now everybody turn this way. You know, this is a better angle. And I looked at him and I'm like, D much? I feel really bad what's coming out of my mouth. They're given by authority. They like to take control. They embrace change. And their greatest fear is being taken advantage of. Does anybody resonate with a D style? Raise your hand. D's are about 3% of the population. I have a feeling more. And it's a good thing. It really is. I's, we seek friendly environments and we're always active. We're relationship oriented. We're emotional and animated. If you have any conversation with me, you know exactly how I feel about anything. I do not have a poker face. David, you talk more with your hands than I do when I'm Italian. I mean, and I'm constrained here because I don't want that back noise. Our greatest fear is rejection and loss of approval. And later I'm going to ask you for some examples, but one of the things that I want to say to you, someone would always come into my office and talk to me. 85% of the time the conversation started, Kimberly, do you know what your problem is? First of all, I have many. Second of all, I didn't know I had problems. But somebody who has a fear of rejection and loss of approval, the wrong way to start that conversation. who's an I, relates with an I. We're 11% of the population. So the S, which is steady, they seek a team environment and they're very loyal. They're easygoing and agreeable, evenly paced, a good listener, they're compassionate. And their greatest fear, I just noticed that nobody set my timer.
I'll wave at you.
Okay. Oh, drinks on me. Is that in the budget?
Sure.
Their greatest fear is loss of security and confrontation. Who resonates with an S? That's 69% of the population. And C is compliant. They love an environment that honors logic and facts. They're conscientious, they're accurate. I'm laughing because the next one, David, is detail-oriented. And as Cindy and I have discussed today,
No.
and I can say that to you because an S's greatest fear is criticism. That's not gonna bother him at all. Who's a C? Okay, you're 17% of the population. So what I'm going to show, not scientific here, but it takes a mixture of people. And we're going to have different elements of it. And again, it's not to label you or to put you in a box. This is really as a leader, especially within, emerging leaders. And I know there was one of our calls one time on emerging leaders. We had a conversation with, I'm not going to name names, but somebody was struggling with how to have a conversation with a staff member who just wasn't doing what they were supposed to do. And that's what this is to kind of help you think through a little bit. There are characteristics and approaches that we want to think. And David, are we going to send the PowerPoints out?
We can.
Yeah, thank you. So you don't have to take notes. I saw that. Because I think this would be really good to do there. And I'm going to give a couple examples and I'm going to ask some questions here. I talked about the different groupings. So D, dominant. For those of us in the John Maxwell team, we know that the president of the John Maxwell team, Paul Martinelli, is a D. In fact, I think he's a D, 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 D. I've never seen anybody more driven, more direct. I would call him assertive. When I get on a call with Paul, I know that. I'm a high I. I want to talk. Paul doesn't want to talk. So I adjust my communication with Paul, and it sounds like, hey, Paul, it's Kimberly. I'm struggling with X, and I need to do Y. Can you help me think through it? It's brilliant. He goes. And I have much better conversation than if I would give him the story. I'm currently working with a leader who she calls herself a collaborative leader. She doesn't like confrontation. Her team was pretty much imploding back in April. I tried to have a conversation with her, and her comment back to me was, it'll work out eventually. We may or may not win a contract by September. Some of these people might not have a job. So she was willing to let this dysfunction continue for months. I wanted to tell her that was wrong, but I had to learn how to talk with her. So my communication style with hers was, well, what do you think is going to happen if this continues for the next few months? Is that really what you want to see happen? Do you have something? So you have to adjust how you talk. And as we've heard time and time again, when we're talking about leaders, and especially the emerging leaders, guess where this responsibility lies? It's on you. So when I asked earlier who had a communication problem and who thought it was somebody else, it was me. It wasn't her. I should have realized that I was causing fear in her by asking her to do something out of her comfort zone. I'm in my office happy, thinking I got one thing off my checklist. She's having a mental breakdown, calling HR on me almost. That's not what we're talking about. So I want to kind of get a little bit of activity here. So those of you You raised your hands earlier and said you were a D. Can you share, say for a couple examples of either when you miscommunicated or when somebody miscommunicated with you? Yeah, don't make me do what David does and call on people. Kristen? Don't make eye contact with me.
I can't, but somebody who personally was looking at me really aggressively, so I'm assuming he has.
Thank you.
Embrace the silence. So I have a lot of different people that I work with very different communication styles, and I tend to have the same one with all of them. So that's.
Oh, goodness. So, yeah, one of the things I took from the previous speaker was saying ask advice from people maybe that you weren't bonded with as much at work, and that is something that I'm going to try and use in the future. So, again, maybe adjusting my style to who I'm talking to at the time.
That's great. And one of the things, and I think I shared it on our calls, and Jeff kind of danced around it as well. I don't have a problem asking people that I know don't like me. What's it like to be across the table from me? And I also ask that of people that I think do like me. Because I'm going to pick on David. Unlike the panel of experts that are all men, guess what? There are female leaders
There are,
in this room.
absolutely.
Okay, just want you to know.
Absolutely.
But if you're a female leader and you're assertive, they have a couple nice names they call you. One rhymes with itch. I was told I couldn't cuss, but everybody else was cussing, so I'm not cussing. I'm trying to be nice here. And it could be which. So yes, it's a great way to be. Are there other Ds that want to talk about, share an example? Jeff, are you a D?
A little bit.
So I told you all about Karen, my assistant. Karen is not a D, and I can be very direct because I'm mission-oriented, and sometimes I leave bodies in the wake trying to conquer the hill, right? And I just want to move at a very, very fast pace and get the task done, very task-oriented. And Karen, as much of a servant's heart that she has, she always tries to comply and go fast with me. But there was one day specifically early in our working together that she came into my office and she shut the door and burst into tears. And I said, "What's wrong?" I'm thinking she's going to tell me something in her family, whatever it might be. And she said, "I just want to know why you don't appreciate me." And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, why would you think that? And she said, "You never say thank you. You never appreciate what I do. Your emails are abrasive. Meanwhile, I'm get this to me by 3. Not thinking, I just need to get the job done. Meanwhile, she needs a smiley emoji. And I wasn't speaking her love language. And so she took that as, you don't care, you're insensitive, you don't care about my feelings, and you don't appreciate me. So I think it's a good point, especially for the Ds, that your way isn't the highway, and people matter, and it's not always about what we want. I don't fish with a Snickers bar on the hook because I like to eat Snickers. I put a worm on there. And so we got to know what that looks like.
I love that. So you eat worms, not one of the other things, I appreciate both of you sharing. The other thing is then, as somebody who's a D in how you receive information, if you're direct and to the point, and if I come in and say, "Jeff, my gosh, let me tell you about my weekend. I drove to Pittsburgh. It snowed. I had no idea. I had to put air in my tires. It was cold. I was freezing. Men were looking at me. Everybody was mad at me. Your brain has exploded at this point. Yes, yeah, the one next to you is like, sure has. Yeah, so think about it from both, how you give and how you receive. Okay, the I people. Some communication issues that you've run into or experienced?
I'm just gonna piggyback off your comment, and that is, whenever you're telling your story to someone that's a D, right, they tend to fade off. And I've noticed that whenever I'm having conversations, if it's a high D, is if I'm giving them all those details about my day or how things are going, I can see it in their eyes, but I still have like this desire to keep telling them, and like, I need to write it down.
I'm sorry, Justin.
I have been waiting for you to chime in, sir. But you're right, and I would say now you're probably gonna recognize that more. I like to talk. I have a lot of good stuff to say. Why don't you wanna listen to me? I talk to my dog. Any other eyes? Yes?
I tend to have to edit myself in like email communications and things where I'm maybe getting too verbose or using too many exclamation points and things like that. So I have to go back and kind of tighten up my communications.
Watch the microphone come out on the film. No, she said she has to edit herself, and you know, that's good. A lot of times I'll write something and walk away from it before I send it, and then go back and take out the fluff, which I think, you know, on the other hand, I've been accused of not putting all the salient points in a conversation, so it's a battle. You have to figure it out. What about our S's, the steady folks? Any examples of how people have communicated with you that just didn't work, or where you might have caused some stress? Do you remember what S is? You're easygoing. Teresa.
So I'm not an S, but I have an S on my team. And one of the least favorite things for me to do is sandwich feedback with, you're awesome, you did this terrible, but you're awesome. Like, I hate doing that because it feels so inauthentic to me. But for her, it was necessary to do. So the first time I realized this was when she totally missed the critical feedback in the middle.
She heard all the good stuff.
She didn't even, just totally glossed her over. And 2 days later, I'm calling her up and going, hey, where is the report that we needed? And she was like, what report are you talking about? Like, the one in the middle of the you're awesome. Oh, I just heard the you're awesome part. Like, okay, so now I know an S, while steady, needs, you know, for things to be pleasant, but you can't be, my error in communicating with her was being overly focused on the pleasant. They needed both, but in the right dose, with clarity of both doses. Does that make sense?
Good point. David gave me the 5-minute mark a little bit ago, but I'm gonna finish up in a few minutes. What you said reminded me of an experience early on in my career. I was the only female on a team of men. I won a large contract. So we're in a staff meeting and I was recognized for the large contract. The supervisor boss realized everybody else was mad. So, Kimberly, you won a large contract. People are going to be employed for 5 years. Cause, you know, we appreciate you showing up at work. I mean, they just kind of went around the table, and each time he was trying to make the other people feel valued, mine was less and less and less. So you have to kind of balance that. So it really is, it's a balancing act. The C's, who logic and facts.
So I can speak to that if you want.
Yeah.
So my team will laugh when I say this, but
Well, let's get the mic on you.
Yeah, so
wanna
I
hear-
often will allow a KPI to drive the feeling. So I'm like, you can't feel that way because the data that I'm seeing doesn't support how you're feeling. So if I can get an Excel formula to work, then I'm like, that's how you should feel. So I have to remember, as a very task-focused leader, that feelings do, people have feelings. You know,
Let's give him credit. All right, our Cs who are logics and facts, the data people, the details. You ever had communication issues? You're just, thank you.
Sure. So, I'm in a new business vertical after 16 years in one. So it's a very new venture for me, and I'm reporting to people on the West Coast, and my senior director is extremely academic and extremely analytical, and I'm like very passionate and expressive, and I can tell you the best story about why we need all of this, and it's worked for 40 years. But now that doesn't work anymore. He's so analytical and so rooted in the science behind things and the numbers behind things. In my first 3 months, I'm like, how do I navigate this relationship? Like, my expressiveness about this topic just isn't winning this guy over. So I've had to dive into data science and really understand it, and I come prepared to every meeting with a portfolio of facts to support what I want. And now we have this fantastic relationship that's rooted in great conversation that feeds his needs and also mine.
That's awesome, thank you for sharing, thank you. So I hope what this is showing you is that we all have different parts and behaviors and characteristics. Even when you are in a leadership role, you're not always right or in charge. So you have to learn how to adapt. And I love this quote: the single biggest problem with communication is the illusion that has actually taken place. I know the wonderful George Bernard Shaw said it, but you can put my picture up there. I have stepped in it big time, most of my career, so don't do what I did. Just quickly here, and you'll get this, you can have effective communication, just kind of keep these things in mind. If, as you were just saying, avoid the monologue if you're that detailed person, don't go into that. Make it a little short and sweet. Prioritize, lead by example. We heard from Teresa earlier about authenticity. Be open. There's no quicker way to connect with your team than to be open, but also watch being too open. That'll be an issue as well. And just want to end with this, that you really need to be aware of how you communicate, how you give and receive information, but also be aware of your team and the people you're interacting with, how they give and receive it. Because we want to be communicating with them, not to them. That's all I got, David.
All right, thank you, Kimberly.